Lieutenant Commander Jason Miller checked his uniform one last time in the mirror of his quarters on Earth's orbital diplomatic station. Today was important. The Orcsians were coming, and first impressions mattered. "You ready for this?" asked Dr. Lisa Ward as she entered his quarters. She carried a tablet with notes about Orcsian biology and culture. "As ready as I'll ever be," Jason replied. "Never thought I'd be welcoming 7-foot-tall predator aliens with teeth the size of my fingers." Lisa smiled. "They're not just predators. They're intelligent beings with a complex society. But yes, they evolved from apex hunters on their homeworld." Jason and Lisa walked through the curved hallways of the station toward the main docking bay. Workers hurried around them, making last-minute preparations for the arrival of the Orcsian diplomatic team. "Run me through the key points again," Jason said. Lisa scrolled through her notes. "The Orcsians have a pack-like social structure, very hierarchical. They value strength, but also loyalty. Their biology makes them naturally aggressive, but they've developed sophisticated cultural controls to manage it. The most important thing to remember is their attitude toward their young. The cubs, right? Yes. Orcsian protective instincts toward their cubs are incredibly powerful, even stronger than their aggression. They will literally die to protect their young, and they get dangerously aggressive if they think their cubs are threatened. Captain Diane Foster met them at the entrance to the docking bay. The Orcsian ship is on final approach. Ambassador Krellvorn transmitted his diplomatic credentials, but there's something odd in their manifest. "What's that?" Jason asked. "They're bringing cubs, 3 of them." Lisa's eyes widened. "That wasn't in the briefing. Orcsians almost never travel with their young, especially not on first contact missions." The massive docking bay doors opened slowly as the Orcsian ship completed its docking procedure. The sleek predatory design of the vessel reminded Jason of ancient Earth sharks, all smooth lines and hidden power. A connection tunnel extended from the station to meet the ship's airlock. Station security lined up in formal positions, not as a threat but as a sign of respect. The airlock hissed open. Ambassador Krellvorn stepped through first. He stood 7 feet tall with gray-blue scaled skin and eyes that seemed to glow amber in the station's lights. His powerful body moved with surprising grace despite the heavy ceremonial armor he wore. Behind him came 4 more adult Orcsians, all displaying similar physical characteristics but with varying scale patterns. And then, to everyone's surprise, 3 small figures appeared. The Orcsian cubs stood about 3 feet tall with softer features and larger eyes than the adults. Their scales had a pearly sheen, unlike the matte finish of their elders. Jason glanced at Lisa, who seemed as surprised as he was. This was unprecedented. The Orcsians were known to be extremely protective of their young. Bringing cubs to an alien station was completely unexpected. Captain Foster stepped forward. "Ambassador Krellvorn, on behalf of Earth and the human race, welcome to Harmony Station. We are honored by your presence." The large Orcsian bowed his head slightly. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rumbling, but the translation device at his throat converted his words to English. "Captain Foster, we bring greetings from the Orcsian Protectorate. I present my diplomatic team." He gestured to the adults behind him. "And these are my clutch cubs, along with their bearer, my mate, Krellvorn." A slightly smaller but no less imposing Orcsian stepped forward, standing protectively near the 3 cubs. Captain Foster maintained her diplomatic smile despite her surprise. "We had not prepared for the honor of hosting your family, Ambassador. Please allow us a moment to make suitable arrangements." As Foster spoke quietly into her communicator, Jason studied the cubs. They stayed close to their parents, but their large eyes darted everywhere, taking in the station with obvious curiosity. Unlike human children, they maintained perfect discipline, not running or making noise. Lisa leaned close to Jason. "This is fascinating. Orcsians never expose their young to potential danger. This must be some kind of test." Ambassador Krellvorn's attention turned to them. "You are Lieutenant Commander Miller and Dr. Ward? I was told you would be our primary contacts during this visit." Jason stepped forward. "Yes, Ambassador. I'll be coordinating security and diplomatic protocols. while Dr. Ward is our xenobiologist specialist. She studied your people extensively. The ambassador's head tilted slightly. Indeed? And what have you learned about us, Dr. Ward? Lisa maintained eye contact, knowing Orexians respected directness. I've studied your biological heritage, social structures, and particularly your developmental stages. But I admit, I never expected to meet Orexian cubs in person. This is an unprecedented honor. One of the cubs made a chirping sound and tugged at its mother's armor. The female Orexian bent down, listening to something the cub whispered, then straightened. My offspring has a question, Trellvorn said. He wishes to know if there are human cubs on this station. Captain Foster rejoined the group. Yes, we have. Several families with children living on Harmony Station. Our educational and recreational facilities are designed for long-term habitation. The Orexian adults exchanged glances that seemed meaningful, though Jason couldn't interpret them. We would be interested in observing these facilities, Ambassador Krellvorn said, as part of cultural exchange. Of course, Captain Foster replied. We can arrange that, but first let me show you to your quarters. We're adjusting them now, for your family's comfort. As they walked through the station toward the diplomatic section, Jason noticed how station personnel reacted to the Orexians. There was caution, certainly. These were powerful alien predators, but also fascination, especially regarding the cubs. The diplomatic quarters had been hastily reconfigured. What had been meeting rooms were now being converted to sleeping areas for the cubs. Our apologies for the adjustments, Jason said. We weren't expecting cubs. Ambassador Krellvorn made a sound that the translator didn't catch, perhaps a laugh. That was intentional, Commander Miller. We wish to observe your natural reaction to our young, not a prepared response. Lisa's eyes lit with understanding. You're evaluating us based on how we treat children. All intelligent species can be judged by how they protect their future, Trellvorn said. We have heard interesting things about humans and their offspring. We wish to see for ourselves. At that moment, a human family passed in the corridor. 2 parents with a small boy about 5 years old. The child stared openly at the Orexians, his eyes wide with wonder rather than fear. Are you dinosaur people? The boy asked before his embarrassed mother could stop him. The Orexian cubs chirped in what sounded like amusement. One of them stepped slightly forward, looking at the human child with equal curiosity. Jason held his breath, unsure how the adult Orexians would react to this unplanned encounter. To his surprise, Ambassador Krellvorn crouched down, bringing himself closer to the human child's level. We are not dinosaurs, young human, we are Orexians. Our ancestors were hunters like some of your Earth animals. What is your name? I'm Kyle, the boy said without fear. Your scales are really cool. The ambassador's expression changed in a way Jason couldn't read, but the translator conveyed his words. Thank you, Kyle. Your bravery is admirable. The parents quickly guided their son away with apologetic smiles. As they continued toward the diplomatic quarters, Jason noticed the Orexians watching every human-child interaction they passed with intense interest. Tomorrow, Ambassador Krellvorn said, we would like to see your child care facilities. This is now our primary diplomatic interest. Jason and Lisa exchanged glances. This first contact mission had just taken an unexpected turn, and neither of them fully understood why. The next morning, Jason Miller woke to the sound of an urgent message on his communication device. Captain Foster needed him immediately. He dressed quickly and hurried to the command center, where he found Foster speaking with the station's Chief Engineer Eric Gonzalez. What's happening? Jason asked. Captain Foster looked worried. We have a problem with life support in the diplomatic section, specifically the area where the Orexian cubs are staying. How bad is it? Jason asked. Eric ran his hand through his hair. A cooling system malfunction caused damage to the oxygen circulation. The section housing the cubs is showing rapidly dropping oxygen levels. The automatic repair systems are locked out because of the damage. Have you notified the Orexians? Jason asked. Not yet, said Captain Foster. I wanted to have a solution ready first. They're extremely protective of their young, and I'm concerned about their reaction. Jason nodded. Call Dr. Ward immediately. We'll need her knowledge of Orexian biology. Minutes. Later, Lisa arrived, quickly absorbing the situation as they explained. This is potentially very dangerous, she warned. Orexians become extremely aggressive when their cubs are threatened. Their protective instincts override their rational thought. The door to the command center opened, and Senior Protector Zevral, the Orexian security chief, entered. His amber eyes immediately focused on the emergency displays. Our monitors detected the life support failure, he said, voice low and dangerous. Why were we not informed immediately? Captain Foster stepped, bored. We were preparing a solution before alerting you. We didn't want to cause unnecessary concern. The Orexian scales seemed to darken. The cubs are in danger. There is no time for discussion. He moved toward the exit. Wait, Jason called. The automated systems can't reach the damaged area. We need to manually reset the circulation controls. Then I will do it, Zevral said. Lisa shook her head. The access tunnels are designed for human proportions. You're too large to fit through them. The situation grew tense as more Orexians, including Ambassador Krelvorn and his mate, entered the command center. Their body language showed increasing agitation as they learned about the danger to their cubs. The cubs report difficulty breathing, Krelvorn said, clutching a communication device. We must remove them immediately. Opening the doors would make the problem worse, Eric explained. It would cause rapid decompression of the entire section. Jason made a quick decision. Doctor, Ward and I will go in through the maintenance tunnels. We can reset the system manually and restore proper oxygen levels. Ambassador Krelvorn stepped forward. You do not understand. When Orexian cubs are in danger, adult Orexians become dangerous. Even their parents may attack perceived threats. It is our protective instinct. We cannot control it fully. Are you saying the cubs might attack us? Jason asked. No, but any adult Orexian in the section may view your approach as a threat, especially in an emergency situation. It is too dangerous for you. Lisa moved to stand beside Jason. We understand the risk, Ambassador, but those cubs need help now. Without waiting for further discussion, Jason and Lisa headed for the nearest maintenance access point. They could hear the Orexians following behind them, still protesting. Do you really understand what you're doing? Captain Foster asked as they prepared to enter the tunnels. Not completely, Jason admitted, but we can't just let those cubs suffer while we argue. Armed with emergency oxygen masks and repair tools, Jason and Lisa crawled through the narrow maintenance tunnels. The space was tight, designed only for essential repairs. As they moved deeper into the system, they could hear sounds from the diplomatic quarters, the distressed chirping of Orexian cubs. We're almost there, Lisa said, checking the station schematic on her device. The primary circulation control is just ahead. They reached a small junction where they could see into the diplomatic quarters through a ventilation grate. 3 Orexian cubs were huddled together on a sleeping platform. Their breathing looked labored, and their normally bright eyes seemed dull. An adult Orexian guard paced the room, clearly agitated. As Jason and Lisa watched, the guard's head snapped up, nostrils flaring as it sensed their presence. It knows we're here, Jason whispered. Focus on the controls, Lisa replied. I'll keep an eye on the guard. Jason worked quickly to reset the circulation system, but his hands fumbled with a crucial connection, sending a small tool clattering against the metal floor of the tunnel. The sound was enough. The Orexian guard let out a roar and charged toward the ventilation grate, claws extended. Hurry, Lisa urged. Jason completed the connection just as the guard smashed into the grate, denting it inward. The circulation fans hummed back to life, but the Orexian was now tearing at the grate, trying to reach them. We need to get out of here, Jason said, pulling Lisa back down the tunnel. As they retreated, the sound of tearing metal echoed behind them. The guard had broken through the grate and was trying to squeeze into the tunnel after them. It won't fit, Lisa said, but it's going to keep trying. They made it back to the access point where Captain Foster and the Orexian delegation waited, anxiously. As they emerged, Jason noticed the look of shock on the Orexians' faces. The circulation system is back online, he reported. Oxygen levels should return to normal within minutes. Ambassador Krellvorn stared at them. You went in despite our warning about our protective instincts? The cubs needed help, Lisa said simply. The ambassador exchanged glances with his mate. Something unspoken passed between them. We must check on our young, Krellvorn said, hurrying away with several guards. Paul Martinez, the station's childcare specialist, arrived with a medical team. Anyone hurt? We're fine, Jason said, though his arm had a long scratch from their hasty retreat. How are the cubs doing? Paul checked his medical scanner. Oxygen levels in the room are already returning to normal. Their vital signs are stabilizing. Ambassador Krellvorn approached them again after speaking with someone on his communication device. The cubs are recovering well, but I do not understand your actions. What don't you understand? Jason asked. You risked your lives for alien children. You were warned that our guards might attack, yet you proceeded anyway. Lisa nodded. Of course we did. But they are not your offspring, the ambassador insisted. Our guards could have killed you. Our protective instincts are overwhelming. Jason shrugged, wincing slightly at the pain in his scratched arm. Helping children in danger is just what humans do. It doesn't matter if they're our own or not. The ambassador's expression changed to something neither Jason nor Lisa could interpret. He turned to his fellow Orexians and spoke in their native language. The translator didn't catch it, but whatever he said caused a ripple of what seemed like astonishment through the group. Later, as a medic treated Jason's arm, Lisa sat beside him in the medical bay. Something important just happened, she said. Did you see how they reacted when you said helping children is just what humans do? Jason nodded. They seemed surprised, but why? Lisa's eyes brightened with realization. I think I understand. Why they brought their cubs here, Jason. I think they're studying us, not our technology or our politics. Then what? How we care for our young, and I think we just revealed something about humans that completely surprised them. 2 days after the life support incident, Jason and Lisa were surprised to receive a formal request from the Orexian delegation. Ambassador Krellvorn asked to tour the station's educational and childcare facilities. Even more surprising was the news that a senior Orexian cultural authority named Elder Matriarch Tirzan had arrived on a second ship specifically for this purpose. They're really serious about this, Lisa said as she and Jason walked toward the meeting point. Elder matriarchs rarely leave the Orexian homeworld. They're like a combination of Supreme Court Justice and University Chancellor. I still don't understand why they care so much about how we raise kids, Jason replied. They entered the conference room where Captain Foster was already speaking with Ambassador Krellvorn and an older female Orexian whose scales had a silvery tint. Her ceremonial armor looked ancient, with intricate carvings that the translator said represented hundreds of successful offspring. Commander Miller, Dr. Ward. Captain Foster said, This is Elder Matriarch Tirzan. The Elder Matriarch studied them with eyes that seemed to see beyond their surface. You are the humans who rescued our cubs despite the warning of danger. I wish to understand this behavior better. Ryan Holloway, the station's child psychologist, joined them for the tour. The Orexian delegation followed as they moved through the station's family section. Their first stop was the station's daycare center, where children from 6 months to 5 years old played under the watchful eyes of caregivers. The Orexians watched with intense concentration as a human caregiver comforted a crying toddler, then skillfully redirected the child's attention to a new activity. Your cubs cry openly, Elder Tirzan observed. Our young learn to suppress distress signals very early. Human children express their needs through crying, Ryan explained. It's how they communicate before they learn to speak. And you respond to these signals without aggression, the elder noted. Interesting. They moved to the school section, where older children learned in interactive groups. The Orexian delegation seemed fascinated by how teachers maintained discipline without physical intimidation. During lunch in the school cafeteria, a small altercation broke out between two boys arguing over a toy. The Erexians tensed visibly as a teacher approached, but they watched in apparent amazement as she calmly separated the children, spoke to each one, and guided them to a peaceful resolution. No threats were made, Ambassador Krelvorn said quietly, to the elder. Yet the cubs obeyed. After the tour, they gathered in a conference room where Admiral William Powell had arrived to join the discussions. The increased human presence seemed to match the growing importance of these meetings. We thank you for showing us your educational methods, Elder Tirzan said. Now we must explain our interest. It is not typical for us to reveal cultural vulnerabilities, but our council has authorized this exchange. The elder's translator paused briefly as if searching for the right words. Our species faces a challenge that has limited our development for generations. It relates to our young and our protective instincts. Ambassador Krelvorn continued. When Erexian cubs are threatened, adult Erexians enter a state of protective rage. This served us well in our evolutionary past, but in a technological society, it creates problems. What kind of problems? Admiral Powell asked. Imagine a medical emergency involving a cub, the elder explained. The doctors cannot approach to help because the parents become dangerously aggressive. Or consider an educational setting where a young one is struggling. Instructors cannot correct the cub because any perceived criticism triggers protective responses from nearby adults. Lisa leaned forward. So when cubs are in danger, your protective instincts actually prevent you from helping them effectively? Precisely, said the ambassador. We have developed cultural controls and separation protocols, but these are imperfect solutions. We still lose too many cubs to preventable situations. Elder Tirzan's voice grew solemn. When we first encountered humans, our observation ships noted something remarkable. You protect your young fiercely, yet you maintain rational thought while doing so. This is unknown among predator species in our experience. The conference room was quiet as the humans absorbed this information. When we learned of this trait, the ambassador continued, our council decided it warranted direct observation. That is why we brought our cubs on this mission, an unprecedented risk, but necessary to confirm our observations. Ryan Holloway spoke up. And the incident with the life support system was not planned, Elder Tirzan assured them. But it provided valuable confirmation. Your people risked their lives for alien cubs while remaining calm enough to solve a complex technical problem. Our guards, by contrast, could only attack a perceived threat, not assist with the actual danger. Admiral Powell looked thoughtful. I appreciate your openness, Elder. But what exactly are you proposing? We wish to learn from humans, the Elder said simply. We wish to understand how you balance protection with rationality. In return, we offer technological and cultural exchanges beneficial to both our peoples. The Admiral raised his eyebrows. You're proposing an alliance based on childcare practices? We are proposing an alliance based on survival, Ambassador Krelvorn corrected. The future of any species depends on how well they protect and prepare their young. Humans have developed an approach we lack. Captain Foster, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. To better understand your needs, perhaps you could observe a human family in a more natural setting. We have several families who might volunteer to host your delegation for a meal. The Elder and Ambassador exchanged glances, then nodded in agreement. Later that evening, Jason and Lisa accompanied the Erexian delegates to the home of Sam and Nicole Graham and their 3 children, twins aged 7 and a toddler of 2. The Erexians watched with fascination as the human family interacted casually. When the toddler fell and skinned her knee, they tensed in anticipation of protective rage from the parents. Instead, they observed as Nicole calmly cleaned the wound, applied a bandage, and comforted the child. The parent remains calm despite the cub's injury, Elder Tirzan whispered. Yet the comfort provided is no less effective. During dinner, the 7-year-old twins peppered the Erexians with questions. The alien visitors seemed surprised by the children's boldness, but answered with careful patience. Your cubs question authority directly, Ambassador Krelvorn observed. Our young would never do this. Curiosity is encouraged, Sam explained. It helps them learn. As they left the family's quarters, Elder Tirzan turned to Jason and Lisa. We have a saying on our world. The strongest hunter cannot defeat time. It means that physical power has limits. Eventually, age weakens even the mightiest warrior. We have similar sayings, Lisa replied. The elder nodded. But you humans seem to have learned something more. Physical strength is not enough to protect the future. One must also have flexibility of mind. She looked back at the family's door. We believed our protective instincts were our greatest strength. Perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps the ability to remain calm while protecting. That is the greater strength. Jason noticed Ambassador Krell watching the elder closely. Does this mean you'll be recommending this alliance to your council? Elder Tirzan's scales shifted color slightly. I will do more than recommend it, Commander Miller. I will insist upon it. But first, there must be a test, a real one, not a hypothetical scenario or controlled observation. What kind of test? Lisa asked. I do not know yet, the elder replied. But I believe your station will provide one soon enough. The universe rarely fails to challenge those who seek growth. 3 days after the dinner with the human family, the diplomatic talks between humans and Orexians were progressing well. Jason and Lisa had been busy coordinating cultural exchange sessions, where human childcare specialists demonstrated their methods to interested Orexian observers. Chief Engineer Eric Gonzalez approached Jason in the station's mess hall during lunch. The Orexians have requested access to our emergency response protocols, specifically those involving children. Captain Foster approved it, but she wants you there. Jason nodded. When? They're waiting in Simulation Room 3. Elder Tirzan is with them. When Jason arrived at the simulation room, he found Lisa already there with the Orexians. The room was designed to train station personnel for various emergency scenarios using realistic simulations and holographic projections. Commander Miller, Elder Tirzan greeted him. We were discussing your emergency training for cubs. We call them children or kids, Jason corrected gently. And yes, we have extensive drills for emergencies involving our younger residents. Hatchling Overseer Mrek Tal, an Orexian specializing in cub development, stepped forward. Can you demonstrate how humans train their young for danger without triggering fear responses? Dr. Susan Blake, the station's pediatrician, had joined them for this session. We make it into a game for the youngest children. For older ones, we explain the reasons behind the procedures. Susan activated the simulation system. Holographic images of human children appeared, following an adult through an emergency evacuation procedure. The children were calm, moving quickly, but without panic. The young do not flee in terror, Rectal observed. Yet they understand the danger is real. They understand it's serious, Susan explained. But they've practiced so many times that the actions become automatic. Fear doesn't help in emergencies, so we train to minimize it. The Orexians watched several more simulations, asking detailed questions about how humans prevented panic among children during crises. Elder Tirzan seemed particularly interested in how human adults communicated during emergencies without alarming the children. Suddenly, the station's alarm system activated. Red warning lights flashed, and Captain Foster's voice came over the communication system. Attention all personnel. Long-range sensors have detected an incoming micrometeoroid shower. This is not a drill. All civilians proceed to designated shelter areas. Impact expected in 15 minutes. The holographic simulation disappeared as the room switched to emergency mode, displaying evacuation routes and status updates. Is this part of your demonstration? Ambassador Krell asked. No, Jason said, checking his communication device. This is real. We need to get everyone to safety. Throughout the station, families with children were already moving toward the designated shelter areas. Following procedures they had practiced regularly, the Orexian delegation observed with interest as human parents guided their children calmly but quickly. Lisa's device beeped with a message from Captain Foster. The Orexian cubs need to be moved to the central shelter. Their current location isn't rated for this level of impact. I'll tell the ambassador, Lisa said, but just as she turned to speak, another alert sounded. Status update. Captain Foster's voice announced. Automated defense systems have reduced the threat level. Expected impacts are now minimal, but safety protocols remain in effect. Everyone continued toward the shelters. Jason noticed that while the human children followed directions with minimal fuss, the Orexian cubs stayed in tight formation behind their caretakers, moving with military precision. As they approached the central shelter, Lisa's device beeped again. Jason, we have a problem. One of the Orexian cubs is missing. What? How is that possible? Lisa showed him the message. The cub named Krell Tick wandered away from the group during the evacuation. Last seen near Section D7. Jason quickly informed the Orexian delegation. The reaction was immediate and intense. Both Ambassador Krellvorn and his mate Trellvorn began making sharp, clicking sounds that their translators didn't convert. The other adult Orexians tensed visibly, their scales darkening. We must find the cub now, Elder Tirzan said, her usual, calm voice now edged with urgency. Section D7 is being sealed for impact protection, Jason explained. We have 10 minutes before it locks down completely. Then we go now, Ambassador Krellvorn said, already moving toward the section. When they reached the sealed doors to Section D7, Eric was trying to override the automatic lockdown. The system is following emergency protocols. It's not responding to manual commands. Through the reinforced window in the door, they could see the small Orexian cub wandering the corridor, apparently fascinated by the flashing lights of the emergency system. Trellvorn made a keening sound and slammed her clawed hand against the door. The cub looked up, saw his mother, and ran toward the door, chittering in what was clearly distress. Override the system, Ambassador Krellvorn demanded, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. We're trying, Eric said, fingers flying over the control panel. But the safety protocols are designed to prevent exactly that during an impact event. The ambassador's control was visibly slipping. His claws extended, and his breathing became rapid. The other Orexian adults showed similar signs of growing aggression. They're entering protective rage, Lisa whispered to Jason, exactly what they warned us about. Elder Tirzan, though clearly struggling herself, placed a clawed hand on the ambassador's arm. Remember why we came here, control. We must maintain control. The ambassador shuddered visibly but stepped back from the door. Elder Tirzan turned to Jason. Commander Miller, we cannot approach this problem rationally now. Our instincts are too strong. This is the test I spoke of. Not one I would have chosen, but the universe has its own wisdom. Jason nodded, understanding the weight of the moment. We'll get the cub out safely. Lisa, contact Dr. Blake and Ryan. Eric, keep working on that. Override. I'm going to try another way in. Jason hurried to an access panel nearby. There's a maintenance tunnel that runs behind this section. It's tight, but I can fit through it. Eric looked up from his work. That tunnel isn't rated for human safety during impacts. If a micrometeoroid hits while you're in there, then I'd better be quick, Jason said, already opening the panel. As Jason prepared to enter the tunnel, Elder Tirzan approached him. You risk yourself for a cub not your own, knowing we cannot help if you encounter danger. That's what humans do, Jason said simply, echoing his words from days earlier. The ambassador joined them, visibly fighting for control. My mate and I request your help, Commander. We cannot think clearly enough to save our own cub. This is difficult to admit. Jason nodded respectfully. I understand. I'll bring your cub back safely. As Jason disappeared into the maintenance tunnel, the Orexians watched in silence. Elder Tirzan's eyes were fixed on the spot where he had vanished. Today, she said quietly, we learn if humans truly are what we hope they are. 2 weeks after the micrometeoroid incident, Harmony Station was busier than ever. A large delegation from Earth had arrived, including Secretary General Olivia Thompson, Earth's highest political representative. The Orexians had sent their own, high-ranking official, Grand Protector Drevkon, the supreme leader of their species. Jason stood in his dress uniform beside Lisa as they waited in the main diplomatic hall. The room had been decorated with symbols from both cultures, emphasizing the historic nature of this meeting. Hard to believe how much has changed in just a few weeks, Lisa whispered. Jason nodded, unconsciously touching the fresh scar on his forearm, a souvenir from his crawl through the maintenance tunnel. The rescue had been successful. He had reached the Orexian cub just minutes before the micrometeoroids hit the station. The protective shields had held, but the impact had knocked out power briefly, trapping them together until Eric could restore the systems. During those tense minutes, Jason had stayed calm, keeping the frightened cub distracted with simple games until they could be rescued. When they emerged, the sight of the normally fierce Orexian parents gratefully receiving their cub without any aggression toward Jason had left everyone speechless. The doors opened, and the dignitaries entered. Secretary General Thompson led the human delegation, while Grand Protector Drev Khan, an imposing Orexian with battle scars visible on his scaled face, led his people. Elder Matriarch Tirzan walked beside him, her ceremonial armor gleaming under the lights. Captain Foster welcomed everyone and directed them to the conference table. As the formal introductions began, Jason noticed the Orexian cubs were present, seated quietly with their caretakers at a small side table. Human children from the station were there too, watching the proceedings with curious eyes. Secretary General Thompson spoke first. On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, I extend friendship to the Orexian Protectorate. We are honored by this opportunity to forge new bonds between our peoples. Grand Protector Drev Khan rose to his full height, towering over everyone in the room. His deep voice rumbled even through the translator. For generations, the Orexian Protectorate has stood alone among the stars. We are warriors, hunters, protectors. We believed our strength was enough. We were wrong. A murmur ran through both delegations at this admission. When our scouts first observed humans, the Grand Protector continued, we saw a species physically weaker than ours. We did not understand your true strength until we witnessed how you protect and nurture your young. Dr. Frank Nelson, a human anthropologist specializing in interspecies cooperation, leaned forward. What specifically impressed you about our childcare approaches? Elder Tirzan answered. Throughout the galaxy, predator species face the same challenge. Our aggressive protective instincts, which served us well as hunters, become liabilities in a technological society. When our cubs are endangered, we lose rational thought. We become dangerous, even to those trying to help. The Grand Protector nodded. This has limited our development for centuries. We created workarounds, isolation, protocols, specialized caretakers who suppress their instincts through medication, but these are imperfect solutions. And you believe humans have solved this problem? Secretary Thompson asked. You have, Elder Tirzan said firmly. Humans protect their young with no less dedication than Orexians, but you maintain your ability to think, to plan, to cooperate during a crisis. This is unheard of among predator species. Lisa, who had been invited to speak as a xenobiologist, added her perspective. From an evolutionary standpoint, humans developed a different balance. Our protective instincts are strong, but modulated by our rational minds. This probably developed because human children are dependent for much longer than most species' offspring. The Grand Protector's eyes fixed on Jason. Commander Miller demonstrated this trait perfectly. When the cub was trapped, our own people could not help. Our protective rage made rational action impossible. Yet this human entered a dangerous area during a meteor storm to save a cub not his own, remaining calm enough to both protect and comfort the young one. Ambassador Krellvorn and his mate Trellvorn stood. Our cub Kreltik would not be alive today without Commander Miller's action. This debt cannot be repaid. Grand Protector Drev Khan placed a document on the table. This is why we propose the Treaty of Shared Guardianship, an alliance not based on military strength or resources, but on the future of both our species, our young ones. Secretary Thompson reviewed the document with interest. This is quite extensive. You're proposing human teachers and child specialists. Work with Orexian communities? Yes, the Grand Protector confirmed. And in exchange, we offer military protection for human colonies and technological exchanges. But more importantly, we offer integration, joint nurseries where Orexian and human cubs grow together, learning from both cultures. The discussion continued for hours as the details were refined. Human and Orexian specialists debated points of education, psychology, and development. Through it all, Jason noticed how the Orexians kept looking at the human children, studying their interactions with the adults around them. Finally, the treaty was ready for signing. As the leaders prepared the formal ceremony, the Orexian cub, Kreltic, approached Jason. "Human Jason," the young Orexian said through a small translator. "My clutch parent says you saved me from danger." Jason smiled. "I helped you get back to your parents. They were very worried about you." The cub tilted his head. "Were you not afraid?" "My parents say all thinking beings feel fear." "I was a little afraid," Jason admitted. "But being afraid doesn't mean you can't still help someone." The cub seemed to consider this carefully. "I want to learn this skill. Can humans teach Orexians not to be ruled by fear?" Lisa, who had been listening nearby, knelt down to the cub's level. "That's exactly what this treaty is about. We'll learn from each other." After the formal signing, Captain Foster hosted a celebration in the station's main hall. Human and Orexian children played together under the watchful eyes of parents from both species. Jason stood with Lisa, watching as an Orexian adult carefully demonstrated a game to a group of human children without triggering any protective instincts from their parents. "Look at that," Lisa said. 2 weeks ago, those Orexians would have been too tense to interact with human kids. They're already learning to control their instincts. Elder Tirzan approached them. "We have a saying among our people now. The strongest protection comes from the clearest mind." "That's new?" Jason asked. "Very new," the elder confirmed. "For thousands of years, we believed protection required aggression. Now we understand there is another way." She gestured toward the playing children. "Today we learned why even predators rely on humans with their cubs, because sometimes true strength is not in the claw, but in the calm mind that guides it." Secretary Thompson joined them. "This treaty could change everything, not just for our two species, but for others facing similar challenges." Grand Protector Drevkon nodded. "Already other predator species have expressed interest in what we are building here. The Valkyrie, the tundra hunters of Rigel, all face the same limitation we did. So this alliance could spread throughout the galaxy?" Jason asked. "Indeed," the Grand Protector said. "And it began with a simple act, a human risking himself for an alien child." As the celebration continued, Jason watched human teachers showing Orexian caretakers how to guide children through learning activities without triggering protective responses. Nearby, Orexian combat instructors taught human children the basics of their martial traditions, carefully modified to be age-appropriate. "It's working," Lisa said quietly. "Look how they're interacting now, compared to when they first arrived." Elder Tirzan overheard her comment. "This is only the beginning. Today we take our first steps toward becoming something neither of our species could achieve alone." As Earth's first stars became visible through the station's viewing windows, human and Orexian children gathered together, pointing at the lights that represented countless worlds. For the first time in galactic history, the cubs of predators stood safely beside human children, their futures intertwined by a simple truth. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from the fiercest attack, but from the wisest protection.